Nostopina that
No, I did not.
Here's my Nostopina.
It's one of Bryony's wands.
No, it's my Nostopina. I look out across this land, even though it's completely dense fog.
Well, no.
It's no wonder, really, that the Bronze Age man... No. On the soil yet, he's not where... And that Bronze Age settlement... Whoops. Try not to pull my mic off, I'll do that again. This, hold this up. I'm not going to stick my hand there again. Hold it up, just hold it up.
You're going to tickle me.
I'm not, I swear to you, I'm not. So it's no wonder... No, I'm saying it too quick. Specs.
Excellent. Oh, that looks weird.
I look like one of those.
Oh, you do? What do you look like? One of those fish?
I can't speak too loudly because poor Kay's got a bit of a cold.
It's very true.
Oh dear, spring colds. It's the absolute pits.
Yeah, it's not been good.
Literally.
No.
But we will plough on.
Yes.
Because she's on the up now.
Yes,
You're definitely on the rise.
So, and I was like hot and cold and shivery and, you know, and all that business. But I'm definitely better than I was.
Loads better, thank goodness. Yeah. Because it's our Easter special.
Yes.
Oh, where's your bunny ears? What's happened to those bunny ears? Did you get rid of them?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You know, previously when I said it was like presenting with Dory, and all of you thought, didn't you? I know, you thought I was being mean.
You can see me racking my brains. I vaguely remember now that I bought some for Bryony one year.
There.
That was years and years and years ago. I can't remember things from last week, let alone years ago.
And do you know the fault of that? Touchscreen devices.
Is it?
Because no one uses their brains anymore.
No, that's true. We make an effort, don't we? If like Bryony poses a question.
I refuse.
If she asks a question around the table at tea time or anything, we'll say, right, let's think about this question. You know, we know this answer.
Now, that's not strictly true. You're the one.
Well, it depends what mood I'm in, really. I do try to think. If it's something to do with music, I've no chance of remembering.
But I have a high chance of remembering.
Yeah, but you do. So we do normally give it a go and try and remember.
Because of my insistence. Put it down.
It is too easy, isn't it? Just to ask Mr. Google what the answer is. And we really try to make an effort to think about it. Because your brain, people are going to lose the ability to use their brains.
Not us. Let me tell you. It's Good Friday.
Yes, it is.
Oh my goodness.
Gosh.
Quite literally. Do you know what? I said this last time and I'll say it again. Easter is without doubt my favourite of all.
I don't get that really at all. But
you don't get what?
Because you get chocolate. Is that the only reason why?
No, it's because it's exactly what I said last time, and that is.
Oh, I remember.
It shuts down the world. Certainly around here, shuts down like it's Christmas.
Easter Sunday and Easter Monday.
It's wonderful. Yeah. I mean, it really is wonderful. It reminds me of that day which we all had. People of a certain age growing up on a Sunday. On
a Sunday.
When, there
was nothing open on a Sunday.
It's great.
When I was growing up.
I used to have a really heavy day singing at the Minster on a Sunday.
Right.
And going into York, I don't think there's many days now. Probably even on Christmas it's probably busy in York. But I remember every Sunday it was marvellous because there was just nobody around. And, my parents could pull me right up to the door of the Minster, drop me off, and then I would go. And it was like Easter Sunday and Christmas Day now. And it's such a shame that we've lost that.
It's the only 2 days of the year, isn't it, really?
Isn't it a shame that we've lost that?
I like that.
I say, actually, we know there's plenty of people actually out there watching who live sort of partially in the wilderness.
Yeah.
We're coming to live with you. Kay only said that to me this morning.
I did.
We were having a bit of a laugh and a joke because the NFL draft is coming up. And it set me thinking about famous namesakes. That reminds me of that TV programme we watched years ago.
You can't talk about that. You can't talk about that.
Oh, goodness. It was a wind-up TV programme and they got famous people to stick with their namesakes. It was a wind-up and the famous people didn't realise. It was highly amusing. But my famous namesakes, my name is It's stupidly
There's
common.
loads of.
All right.
There's loads of you.
All right.
There's Danny Jones. Is he a drummer or something in some band, or does he play guitar?
No.
McFly. Isn't he a McFly?
McFly. That you sounded like in Back to the Future 2 when his boss comes on the video thingy. That's really funny. You're right. There's also Savage Garden, Australian singer,
Right.
called Daniel Jones.
There's the famous.
There's a footballer
There's
called
a
Daniel
footballer.
Jones.
There's
who
the
actually,
writer fella, the historian.
Dan Jones.
Dan Jones,
Yeah, we don't
the
speak
writer
of him.
fella. We don't speak about him.
No. This is the coolest Daniel Jones. He was born in 1912. I think he died in about 2013. So he had a good run.
Wow.
Yeah, he had a really good run. I took my grade 8 percussion exam, actually New York University, and it was amazing because that place is amazing. You of course, you won't know what York University's like.
Is it really old?
Not really, no.
Right.
It's a bit on the 60s side.
All right.
But
Where is it in York?
It's on the outskirts of York. It's on the opposite side of York to the side that you know.
Right.
And what's so cool about York University is the campus is all set around like canals.
Canals.
It's amazing.
Wow.
It is just the coolest place ever.
Wish
It's
I'd
like-
gone to university.
What is so epic about what they've done is so much of what went on in the 60s was awful. But clearly, whoever did this was inspired.
Architecture, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, 60s architecture was
What they did there was
a
inspired.
lot of concrete, wasn't it?
Yeah, and what they have there, so there's loads of little bridges.
Right.
It's a bit Venice-like without the smells. But what they have there is they have this amazing concert hall. And in I go to play I had to play a sonata, a timpani sonata. And I remember
Sinatra, timpani
sonata.
I thought you said Sinatra.
No, a sonata.
Right.
I will accept a modicum of criticism of my pronunciation, but also there's probably a certain amount of cold business going on in your ears. So I would say that's both of us.
Everyone
that was
out
involved.
there thought he said Sinatra.
It's sonata. And who wrote this sonata?
I don't know.
Daniel Jones.
Oh, he was really. Oh, it was years ago, wasn't it?
I played a piece for and these are set pieces, so you can't say, oh, well, look, he's got the same name as me, I'll go play that. They tell you what you're playing. And the piece that I couldn't believe it, when my drum teacher pulled it out, and here you go, and there in big letters on the front, Daniel Jones, Timpani Sonata. Amazing. Great piece it was as well. But there is a quarterback from Duke who is
What's Duke?
It's a university.
Oh, right, okay.
Who's about to get drafted in the NFL draft, and his name is
Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones.
He sent me a little text this morning saying, because he was on a podcast, wasn't he? And you said to me,
Basically,
you could do a podcast called this.
Basically, I listen to an awful lot of American football podcasts, and one of them is they do this thing where they do what they call a 360, which is where they sort of talk to people
Analyse
all around
it from
him.
all around.
Yes, yeah. And it said Daniel Jones 360. So I sent it to Kay and said, oh, you could totally do you could do this, couldn't you? What a show we have in store. Because Kay is knitting a Stephen West design. We'll say nothing more about that.
You've all keeled over, haven't you?
Yes. I was slightly offended when someone said on one of your Instagram pictures, you didn't strike me as the type of person who would knit that.
No.
Let me tell you, you don't know her as well as you thought, do you?
No, I can understand why someone said that. Because Stephen West is very flamboyant, isn't he? And a bit sort of crazy.
But you have a flamboyant and crazy and wild side that people only I am aware of.
That's making me a wild side.
Yes. See, when you sat down today to watch episode 123,
Who knew?
amazing what's on your needles coming up. There's also a rather amazing what's off your needles coming up. And we shall say nothing about that other than, do you have now a nostopina?
I do.
Can I see your nostopina?
No, I'm saving it
Please.
as a surprise.
Oh,
You want to see it?
Yeah.
Okay, I got this one particularly because it's like a wand.
No, look. Kay has a Nostopina, and I also have a Nostopina.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Did you know about this Nostopina? That
No, I did not.
Here's my Nostopina.
It's one of Bryony's wands.
No, it's my Nostopina.
Gosh, that's a big wand, isn't it? Oh, it must be Mad Eye's.
Yes, it is.
Has anybody got Mad Eye's wand? It's enormous and it weighs a ton.
But look.
I wonder if you could. You could absolutely do it.
I know.
It's a bit knobbly, but you could still do it.
I mean, look, it is a wand.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I know.
And we now know what, and I know loads of you out there do know already what Nostopina means, but we have found out as well. And I sort of had a bit of a chuckle about this because, Nostopina sounds just romantic and exciting, and there's so much in that word.
Yeah.
But when I tell you that Nosta means yarn ball and Pina means stick, it's a yarn ball stick.
It's a yarn ball stick.
It suddenly loses all its excitement and mystery. So this is a Nostopina, and I will cast from my mind what the actual meaning of the word is.
Yeah, but it's very pretty, isn't it? It's a wooden one. I'll show it you in a bit more detail.
It is very pretty. I have worn today my Star Wars top, and I've worn this for a reason. Now, when we film this, we are not aware, and we have not seen the new trailer. And actually,
not yet.
It may
You
be.
might have.
It may be that the trailer hasn't even come out, and it was all just a big ruse.
Because no, it's all been like cloak and dagger, hasn't it?
But this is it's a key moment, and I'll just digress for a moment. So don't panic. I'm not going to go off on a total Star Wars nerd fest, but this is for me a key moment because. When The Force Awakens, we all know, how The Force Awakens and that being there helped me get through chemo. It was. I was like, and it was wonderful when we went to see that. But then it all went wrong. All went wrong in Episode 8.
Tragically wrong.
Tragically wrong. We do not like that film at all. We went to see Episode 8, and that has taken me to a point where if they mess up Episode 9, it's going to ruin part of my childhood because all the hopes and dreams, and it's a bit like Back to the Future, they didn't do any more, so it has held its charm and magic. And if they mess up Episode 9, and I'd say there's more chance that they'll mess it up than they'll get it right.
Oh really?
I
think
no,
not.
I'm saying that by the laws of averages.
Right, but I don't think they will.
Well, that's excellent.
I think he's going to pull it back.
That's excellent. I
do.
I'm so.
I've got high hopes.
So we've got the Star Wars trailer, which should have come out, and if that was superb, I will be approaching Cloud 9. What will take me over the edge, and to be fair, what may save this whole situation
that's true.
is I've mentioned this in a previous episode, but also. By now, by the time you see this, it may even... No, it won't be on sale because I think it's going to go on sale on May the 4th. But the other reason why I'm wearing this is the Lego set, and I'm seriously having withdrawals. Bad withdrawals.
There hasn't been a good Star Wars Lego set in a long time.
I had the shakes a couple of times.
Oh, get off.
I didn't.
You've not got room for any more anyway, so you're going to have to do some jiggling.
I haven't... Pardon? I have done some jiggling. Tanty 4 will be announced and it will go on sale on May the 4th, and I will save and I will buy it, and it will be the greatest Star Wars set I've ever had. This show is special, and I'll tell you for why. It has in it literally the biggest shoot for new adventures that we have ever done. It's the most challenging edit I have ever done.
I can attest to how long he's spent doing it.
But what's been wonderful is at no point, whilst I felt a certain amount of back against the wall, also as well, because we pulled together so many wonderful people over years of work, Grace O'Neill, Marcia Ibuki, Anne Hunt, Lucia Pane, these amazing ladies, they've helped create what hopefully is going to be a great instalment of New Adventures. But that's coming later. Now, I've seen loads of pictures, and the most exciting one of all of the lemon and polenta drizzle cake was sat...
The one in Hong Kong.
Hong Kong, baby.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Linda Chan. Looked gorgeous, Linda, as well.
She'd been to knitting club in Hong Kong. Cut herself a slice when she got home.
I mean,
fantastic.
Just wonderful. And, you know, that skyline is so famous.
Yeah,
so to see it there was great.
And I know what I'm doing for the next one.
I was just about to say, I now challenge you to beat that.
I know what I'm doing, and I'm extremely excited. It's a iconic dessert from a certain area of the UK.
Right.
In particular, a certain area of the UK.
Right.
But it's known pretty much everywhere.
And it's not Eton mess.
It's not Eton mess. Eton mess, you could throw that together in 3 seconds,
I don't like Eton mess.
I like it. It's just a meringue. It's just a pavlova.
It's the
it's a lazy pavlova, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's as if, but it is, they dropped it, didn't they? That's how it was invented.
I think so, yeah.
I mean, it would be like you dropped the summer fruits through lard and then just shoved it in a bowl.
That's all it is, an Eton mess. And it's a great, it's a great sort of quick dessert as well, because you can use ready-made pavlovas, can't you? Whip some cream up, a bit of fruit, and you've got it. So it's a great standby dessert, but it's not really something worthy of...
I've had it 2 or 3 times and I've never enjoyed it.
Why? It's the same thing as pavlova though, really.
But I think the problem is people do tend to buy bought meringues.
Yeah.
And beat them up, and they always are just
a bit dry and dusty. They can be, can't they? Yeah.
I think, if you made Eton mess... You see, the thing is that, would you make Eton mess with homemade meringues? I wouldn't do that.
No, I wouldn't, because you've gone to the effort of making a lovely meringue and then you break it up, so I wouldn't do that.
It'd be a total disaster.
If something went wrong, then that's fine. You can make it and pretend that was your plan all along, which is great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, ladies and gentlemen, this is an Easter special, and to make that special we need to begin the next segment with something epic, I think.
Oh, okay, I'll change my project then.
Do you think?
Okay, well that's fine, I'll show that 1 second.
Because that will literally...
If you want to start it with something epic.
Yes, I think we absolutely should start it with something epic.
Okay.
Because it is my favourite holiday of the year. And so when I say those words, and I want you all to join in with me, we expect to see a project which takes our breath away.
Oh gosh, I don't know about that.
Berlin.
Was it Berlin?
I think it was.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Oh.
Was it Berlin?
What else did they sing?
I don't know.
I'm only aware of them because of... I wonder if for the new Top Gun, if I was involved with that new Top Gun, I would go to all the artistes.
The new Top Gun?
Yeah.
Don't tell me Tom Cruise is doing... Oh, stop it. He's like... How old is he?
Yeah.
Get on.
No joke. He is hoping, because, Top Gun was such a great film.
Do you know what we were saying earlier about just letting
Never
things
go
lie?
back.
I don't think... Not when... You can't... What, are they just redoing it? Or
No. It's a new film. It's a sequel.
A sequel?
Yeah.
Like, how many years is it?
From what I've read so far, Maverick is going to be now the trainer.
Right.
I would guess. Here's my prediction.
He'll be running in some point,
Yes,
part
always,
of it, because Tom Cruise likes to watch himself run.
Well, he insists on that in any film he's in.
He thinks he looks good when he runs.
Go away and watch. There's always footage of him running. But I would bet that the storyline is this. Maverick is now the trainer at Top Gun. Maybe Val Kilmer's there as well. What was he called?
Iceman. No, Iceman died.
Yeah.
What was Val Kilmer's name then?
Oh, I can't remember. My prediction is that he's training some people and some sort of combat thing starts.
Oh, and he has to go in.
And he has to go out.
And save the day.
Yes. He has to come out of retirement and away we go. Yeah. I'm already excited. It's going to be great. I'm serious too.
Let these things lie.
Will he have a bike? And they'll have to do...
Oh, he'll be on a bike. He's on a bike a lot, isn't he?
You can't do Top Gun and not have You Take My Breath Away in it at some point.
You would think not.
It wouldn't feel right.
You would think not.
Oh, Danger Zone.
Yeah, and
he can still sing, that boy.
There's got to be a love interest, isn't there?
But it'll be there's got to be a younger dude. That's got to be about the younger dude.
Yeah.
It'll be wrong if it's about.
If it's just Tom Cruise. Yeah.
Kenny Loggins can still sing. Get Kenny in to do a tune.
Not? Yeah.
It'd work. Look, we've given her enough time to prepare.
We're waffling, aren't we now?
You ready? Say it with me on this Easter special. Kay Jones, what's on your needles? My goodness, it is.
Right,
nice.
well, I'm blaming this flu cold thing for making me lose my mind, basically. and I've cast something on that, to be honest though, I have thought about casting this on a number of times, and then I've just thought, don't be ridiculous, because I just thought that's not me. But then I was thinking about my pyjama cardigan, and then I thought again about this, and I thought, hang on a minute, do you know what? I can actually justify in my head. You don't need to justify these things, do you? But
No.
sometimes if it's outside your kind of comfort zone or your aesthetic, you think you can't do it, don't you? And I thought, no, I can totally do this, and I will do colours that are appropriate, more appropriate to my sort of taste, and it'll be fabulous. And it is looking fabulous. And I've even sort of gone off my sort of neutral sort of colour palette a little bit and added a real pop of a real zingy colour. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about the Stephen West design called Penguono. Yeah, I've cast on a Penguono. If you don't know what I'm talking about, which I'm sure the vast majority of you will, it's a design that's been around a few years, and a lot of people have knit this. It's a bizarre kind of patchwork garment, cardigan type thing, and it's constructed in kind of segments. It's very non-traditional shaping, and that actually is the main reason that I cast this on, because I just get bored. I get bored with your basic top down or bottom up. And I think I've kind of been thinking about it on why I get bored. And I think the main reason I get bored with knitting garments is because the type of garments I like to wear are sort of fairly solid colour, simple shapes. And I just don't want to knit that. I just find it boring, just knitting, you know, either round and round and round in the same colour yarn, or, you know, even if it's top down and you're taking sleeve stitches off and all the rest of it. I just get tired of it, tired of looking at the same yarn, tired of just going round and round and nothing interesting happening. But with this, it's constructed in such a unique way, let's say, that I don't think there's any chance you would get bored. And the thing that I love the most about it, because I suddenly thought, this is why I'm going to love this cardigan, is because you can play around with colour. And I realised that that's really what I love to do. I'm happiest when, you know, for example, scrappy blanket projects, because you're constantly changing colour, and you seeing what that colour looks like next to that one, and a different texture and all this kind of thing. And I thought, I can do exactly that with this cardigan.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
I just had a total disaster, and I have another one of these upstairs, and I'm going to swap onto the other one because I lock all my row counters.
Right.
And I couldn't lock this one. And I bet you 50% of the people who are watching have had that moment where you pull out a row counter like this and it's halfway between one number and another number.
You don't know what row you're on.
Am I twisting or am I knitting?
Right, you're on a twist round then, because you're twisting these. I was going to say that,
okay.
But you're on twist.
Thank goodness I asked. What had happened was I must have been on 84.
Right, and it's just nudged a bit.
And it's nudged it over to 85. Thank you. Genius. You see, that's what comes from knitting.
You've just put it onto 85.
Oh, what an absolute fool. That's what comes from knitting a pattern by a designer.
Who's sat here?
Who sat here.
Okay, so here's my Penguono progress. There's a lot of ends.
I love the name.
At Penguono.
Yes.
Where does that even come from?
It makes me think of a relative of Pingu.
I know, yeah. Pingo and Penguono. So here we go. Ta-da!
Or maybe it's his surname.
Stephen Penguono.
No, Pingu's surname.
Pingo Penguono. Stephen Penguono, honestly, what am I on about? If I talk any kind of amount of rubbish, then just please forgive me this week.
After 123 episodes, why are you only now asking us to forgive you for that?
Well, you can take that back.
I do.
Here we go, look.
Look at that, it is gorgeous.
So you start with this central moss stitch panel, and the way that this is written, there's only one size basically, there's one set of instructions, and you adjust the size by changing your gauge. So what I did was I decided roughly the size that I wanted. It's a very, very oversized garment. I won't say, it's not really a cardigan, it's more of a jacket. Very oversized. And although I want it to have quite a bit of positive ease, I don't want the biggest size. It's just absolutely enormous. And I just think, just carrying around the weight of that would be a task in itself.
Yeah.
So look, when I looked at the sort of sizes, I thought, right, I'll try and aim for something in the middle, so like a size large. And the gauge for that meant that you're kind of knitting with the yarn that's about a sort of heavy worsted Aran weight type yarn. So what I did was I've doubled a DK weight, and then I'm using sort of scraps of fingering weight, and I swatched with that. I did swatch. You'll be proud of me. I swatched and checked the gauge in garter stitch, because you swatch in garter stitch, and I did get the gauge that gives me about a size large. So I'm hoping that's what I get. But to be honest, even if it's a bit smaller, if it's a bit bigger, it'll be fine, because they've all got positive ease, you know, based on my measurements, so it's fine. So you start with this central moss stitch panel. You do a provisional cast on, which is that yellow yarn that you can see at the bottom. I did a crochet provisional cast on. He doesn't tell you which provisional cast on to use, which does affect the instructions a little bit, because some provisional cast ons you actually kind of knit in a row as you cast on, but the one I used you don't. It's the crochet cast on where you crochet a chain over your knitting needle. So what I did was I did that so that you've then got all your stitches on your knitting needle, and then I just worked one plain knit row and then started the pattern, and that worked out. So I did the crochet provisional cast on, and then I just started knitting moss stitch.
It looks lovely.
And I just thought, right, okay, I don't want to do one colour. I mean, people have done all kinds of things with this back panel. Some have striped, some have done mohair. This is the back.
Wow.
It'll sit on your back, this. And these welts, which I'll talk about in a minute, run down from like your shoulder down the back, sort of thing.
It's a bit new romantic-y.
It kind of is, actually, yeah. And I think depending on the colours that you use, because Stephen West, obviously, when he made this, his colours are extremely loud and flamboyant and neon and full of mohair, and he throws everything at it, doesn't it? But it's just not my particular taste. I'm a little bit more low-key, but I do like colour. So I thought, right, okay, I will just do 4 sort of panels. I worked out how many rows I've got to do, and I divided that, and then I just changed my fingering weight yarn at the relevant spots. So I got through this moss stitch panel actually really quickly. I enjoy working moss stitch. And I say moss stitch, some people call it seed stitch, but it's basically knit one, purl one, then purl one, knit one. I call that moss stitch. And I think most sort of English knitters would know that as moss stitch as well. So you knit that, and then you put some stitches on hold in the middle here. You can see I've got some stitches on hold, and you cast some off, and then you work these welts, and there'll be another set of welts on the other side here. So I thought, right, what do I want to do with these? And I thought, yes, I do want some pops of colour. I went with, I'd also got, I'll tell you what the yarn is actually that I'm using. The sort of background yarn, if you like, that will be consistent throughout is some yarn that I already had, and it's King Cole Merino Blend DK, and it's in the Aran colourway, which is very confusing. I mean, what yarn company in the right mind call a colourway Aran?
Yeah, it's a bit nuts.
When that's a yarn way. To me, it's just a bit crazy. And I know they probably named it Aran because Aran sweaters are traditionally cream. And you know what I mean, though. It's just confusing, isn't it? I've only got a little bit left of this ball. They come in 50-gram balls, but it's just a plain cream. Really nice to knit with. And it's actually, I think, on the lighter side of DK. It's not... It's perfectly fine, but if I was to compare it to something like a John Arbon Knit by Numbers DK, I think this is slightly thinner. And then, you know, holding that together with fingering weight. So the cream is consistent. I ordered a couple more balls, let me just grab them. I thought I want to have some pops of colour in various points on the garment. So I'll start with the welts. So I've got these 2 in the same yarn, King Cole, I've got this pink and gold. The pink is called pale pink. The goldy colour is mustard. So I had these two and I thought that would be fabulous for the welts. So I thought I'll have those, but then just to give them a bit more zing, to the pink I added a strand of this, which is Madeline Tosh. It's the Tosh Merino Light with glitter, and this is in Voodoo.
And is that what you've done on those welts then?
Yes.
I think what I find so impressive about this is, and this is no slight on King Cole, that knit up is a very ordinary yarn.
Yes, but
looking
that's
at
not,
it on
I
that
know.
welt, it looks expensive.
It does.
And it's not.
It does, it's brilliant.
That's really clever.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So, and this is very, very cheap yarn. It's $2.99 for a 50-gram ball. I mean, that's brilliant, isn't it? It's 100% wool, $2.99, and it's very soft. Brilliant. So I used the pink with the Voodoo, and then the mustard, I had a little bit of my Time Turner colourway, which is very bright golds and yellows and bits of sort of grey. Thought, right, that'll look great with the mustard. And it does, it lifts them. So if I just hold
I mean, look at those.
that up, can you see how it really does lift those two fairly plain, like Dan said, colours?
It's such. I think that on a personal level, as an intermediate knitter who's trying to get better at yarn selections, I learn so much from that.
Right.
Because it just shows me that you don't have to spend stupid amounts of money to create something like this.
No, I agree. Absolutely. So
or anything. I mean, you could do that.
Yeah, I think using a more economical yarn together with something like a more luxury yarn, even if it was in like a shawl, for example, you could use just a fairly plain, I don't know, Cascade Heritage or something, and then add in, a really lovely Madeline Tosh or a hand-dyed yarn, and it really does lift it. So I worked these 3 welts, which I've never done before.
Look at them.
Didn't have a clue what I was doing. And the instructions are perfectly clear, absolutely perfectly clear. But I think you do need to have a certain amount of knitting knowledge in the background to be able to...
Yeah, you do. You told me what you did and I was like, okay.
Yeah, and he does explain how to do it, but I would have appreciated just like maybe one photo of a certain bit of doing the welts. But I did it, and I'm not sure I did it perfectly the same as him. But
it looks pretty good to me.
It looks, and it's sort of smooth on the back here. So there's no lumps or bumps on the back, so I think that's fine. And I really enjoyed them. So I knit these just yesterday, and it didn't really take me that long at all, because I kind of, the first one I wanted to see what it looked like, and then the second one I wanted to see what that looked like next to the pink one, and then the third one I thought, oh, I'm nearly finished. And so I knit them really quick. So you do the welts, and now I've put some more stitches on hold. There's lots of putting stitches on hold. And then I've started work on this panel here. I have no clue what bit this is. If this is your back, so your shoulders are going to come out from here. So this is like the bottom portion of your back, isn't it? Going around like that. So with this one, at first I thought, oh, should I go for a bit more colour there? And then I thought, no, because I've got the really vibrant welts there. So with this one, I'm using... obviously the cream again, I'm maintaining that. But I've got a couple of skeins of yarn by Martin's Lab. And this one is Carousel. And it's basically a pale grey with loads of neon pops. And I thought, well, that'd be great. I'm going to use that. So if I show you this, you can see I've started knitting it. Can you see all the little neon-y pops? You should be able to see those. So I'm getting colour in there, but in a way that suits me, if you know what I mean. It's not completely in your face. And the other thing is, this will be, it's going to be my pyjama cardigan, that I spoke about lots of times. The only thing with this is that, and I could just add this, is I do like a pocket. Well, I do like a pocket in your pyjama cardigan because I always have a tissue in my pocket. Yes. So I'm thinking, well, I could actually just knit.
I do like a pocket.
I could just put on a patch pocket, couldn't I?
Yeah.
And that would totally work with the theme of the garment.
Yeah, especially if you picked out a colour off the
Yeah,
welt.
especially if I did like
listen
a
to
bright patch pocket. That would be quite cool, wouldn't it? You know, in moss stitch or something.
That would be super fun.
Yeah, so I think I can add that without a problem. I'll wait till I've finished it, till I put it on and I see where the pocket should be, and then I'm sure I will add that. So that's the bit I'm working on at the minute, and it's just garter stitch. So I'll do that, and then I believe I go back and I do the other welts, and then the same sidey bit on the other side. And for the other side of the back, for the welts, I'm going to use these two. This is Sea Breeze and this one is June. So I'm going to use those two on the other side because I wanted, for some reason I just thought, oh, I want the other welts to look beachy. I don't know why, I'm just going with the thoughts that are in my head. And again, I will find fingering weight yarns that are a bit more poppy that go with those, just to sort of light them up a bit. I'm not planning this in advance. I've seen people that have knit these and they kind of gather all of these bits together that they want to put into it. I'm not doing that at all, you know. I've just literally got, in my bag, I've literally just got the yarn I'm working with, because I prefer to do the bit I'm doing and then I will look at it and think, right, okay, what do I want to do for the next bit? And that's what I really enjoy. I enjoy that kind of organic process, just seeing it grow in that way. And I think not forward planning as well means that it's just, there's no chance of getting bored because you don't know what you're going to do next. And that's what I really love about it. I think that's great. So we'll see where I am next time. There's oodles of ends, but I'm not bothered about that. And, you know, but I'm just saying to people, if you fancy knitting it and you're not somebody who likes ends, then maybe it wouldn't be the right thing for you. But I think it's fantastic. So I'm using 5.5mm needles with the yarn, with a DK and a fingering held together. And that seems to be giving me a really nice gauge. I did try it with 5mm needles at first. It felt too dense. So 5.5. And I'm using Knit Picks Sunstruck. I really like these needles. They're a wooden needle. They're basically like, imagine, you know, like a Knit Pro Harmony or Symphonies, depending on where you are. It's really like that. They're a birch needle, but they're not coloured. I much prefer a pale coloured needle rather than a dark coloured needle. So yeah, there we go. Who knows where I'll be next time.
Well, hopefully here with me.
But it'll be fun wherever I am in the penguin no post process. Not talking about you. Dan Jones.
Yes.
What's on your needles? Wow.
It's another garment.
Oh, it's
Woohoo.
the garment show. Who'd have thought
It is
that?
the garment show.
Come on.
Yes, it's very
It's
exciting.
like it's someone else sat here. Who am I?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. Now, it's the Cascades by Michelle Wong.
Look at that.
And
You've done loads.
Yeah, I have. And I've been thinking, look, have a look.
It looks
because
lovely.
she'll want to have a look.
I will.
So we'll let
He
her have
never
a look.
normally lets me touch these things.
Well, look,
You don't normally let me look.
I've been thinking, and you know, this might sound silly to
You're
all
going
of
to
you.
rip it out. Is
No.
that what you're thinking?
I love this design. I love everything about it. You know, it was a challenge
But
to
I
get
feel like
into.
there's a but.
There's no but coming.
Right, okay.
It was a challenge to get into, but I'm learning an immense amount. I mean, immense. And I'm enjoying every single bit of it. And, you know, what was a challenging chart to negotiate with the notes I've made and the thoughts thought process I've sort of put into it, invested a bit of time in it. I've now got myself into a position where I'm loving every bit of it. But, yeah, I suppose there was a but.
Yeah, you said but.
The but has been, since I know I've made, you know, one or two tiny mistakes on this, but it's fine, you know, because I made similar mistakes on the Samantha and it looked gorgeous. Because when you've got it in, you know, when you're looking at a small sample size, my fear was, and I'm quite prepared to start again with this.
No.
No. You'll understand why in a minute. Since I have cast on the garment which I started after this, which I'm going to show you later, which is the clay quarter cardigan, I've learnt a lot about sizing. And if you remember, one of my horizons this year was to try and get a better idea on gauge, blah, 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 about sizing garments. So the clay quilt, I'm very confident in where I'm at with it. This one, I actually started and messed up and recast on, and it's been sort of bubbling away for a lot longer. So I wasn't quite so aware with regards to gauge and whatever. But then when I've just sort of stretched it out...
Oh, well, it looks bigger stretched out, doesn't it?
I have a feeling that this design, because it's got a lot going on, it's a bit sucky. But
yeah.
I am prepared.
I think there's also an element of... Because this is the same yarn I'm using for the Penguono. It's the King Cole.
Right.
And I like I've just said, I think this is a slightly lighter DK. It's not a super plump DK.
Right.
And I think if you're a tighter knitter as well...
I just wondered if we should do a live gauge.
In double moss stitch, right, okay.
So there is my double moss stitch.
Right, so 20 stitches, have we got a tape measure?
Oh, okay. That's where this plan
goes completely wrong.
Goes awry because... Oh no, hold on.
Aha!
Look at me!
Right,
I'm a self-contained knitter.
20 stitches. So we've got to pretend...
Should I hold it?
Well, we've got to pretend we're blocked this because this is not blocked. So we've got to bear that in mind. Just hold it.
Is this likely to spread on blocking?
It's superwash.
Okay, so it's going to stretch.
So let's do that because we are stretching it a little bit, but not enormously. So each of these is 2 stitches, isn't it?
Yes.
That's 2 stitches. Right, okay.
So she's measuring the double moss stitch, and I have got to say, I love doing double moss stitch.
20.
Am I bang on?
Well, it says 20 stitches and 30 rounds to 4 inches in double moss stitch after blocking.
Right.
So we've just stretched it a tiny bit, not a lot, and look, over 2 inches, we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10.
That's 20 stitches.
That's 20 stitches. 30 rounds. Let's just have a quick look.
You see, this is the interesting area with me because it's...
Well, your round doesn't matter so much.
Oh, okay. Because this is the area which is, I think I struggle with on the colour work. And I can't quite get my head around that. You would think...
See, we've got a lot more rounds. We've got more like... She's saying you should have 30 rounds to 4 inches.
Right.
We've got more like 40 rounds.
So
your gauge is much tighter that way. However, are you knitting to a certain length?
Yes, I'm not knitting to...
So as long as you're knitting to a certain length, then your row gauge isn't necessarily an issue.
Right.
Because you just knit to that length. And it just means you've knit more rows effectively than...
This raises...
The one that's most important is your stitch gauge.
This does raise...
That's what gives you the width.
A really interesting question though, because this is my issue with colour work.
Right.
My colour work ends up long.
Right, so that must mean that your row gauge is actually... You've got less rows. It's too long.
It's too complicated to work out.
I know, gauge is such a massive thing, isn't it?
But if we're saying here that you would think that when you knit, if you do too many... So what is that? Too many rows?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you do too many rows, that's just the way you knit and you do too many rows, you would think that just must be your thing.
Yeah.
So that then fits.
Also, the thing that might be making the gauge problematic for this is sometimes the yarn that the designer has used can give a very specific gauge, and it can be quite difficult to get a yarn to give you a comparable gauge. And this uses Brooklyn Tweed Shelter. That's actually a worsted weight yarn. So it is thicker than the yarn we're using. We're using a DK, but I think we accounted for that by going up a size, didn't we? We're knitting a size bigger than we normally would.
Yeah.
So, but we've actually got, when we block this, we will probably have a slightly different gauge to the 20 stitches, but not in a way, not in a way that would make the garment smaller.
So what you're saying?
What size are you working? Can you remember? Yeah, I mean the 4th size should give us 46 bust circumference, which is quite a lot of ease for me, but I think that's specifically why we did it because we thought if it comes out smaller, it'll still be fine.
What you're saying then is that you think that this gauge is probably going to be all right.
On paper, that should be okay.
And it is so much more stretchy. Now I've done a bit.
It's very difficult to see when it... Gosh, doesn't it look lovely? Look at that. Look. Let me just show you the other side that doesn't have tails.
Do you know what I really like? I really like the bits on the sides.
Look at that.
Show the bits on the sides too.
Oh yeah.
I think that's so clever. You know,
So these are the side seams.
isn't that lovely? I really think.
I think, you know, when you stretch it and you look at me there, I think that's going to be all right.
Also, when you look at the colour and you look at the colour that you're wearing.
Well, it's definitely a colour that I can pull off, I think.
I'm so happy.
I think it'll be okay because it's superwash as well. We can give it a little extra stretch. And we're not even in that stretching out these centre panels. I mean, look.
Yeah.
If you stretch out, because this is all scrunched up on the needle, but once these are stretched out, look how lovely that is.
I'm so thrilled.
I think it'll be okay. I was worried as well that it looked small.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I did.
And my feeling was always to get to enough length so that we could stretch it out.
Yeah.
And then make a decision. And I was totally cool with starting again with this.
No, because I think because we've done that size bigger as well.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Had we done the size that really we really, for my bust size and the intended amount of ease, I don't like the word bust. I don't know why, for some reason. It makes me think of, I don't know, Carry On films or something.
Oh, mate.
I'm going to say chest.
Okay.
For my chest size, I would have gone for the 41 because that will give me about 3 inches of ease, which is what the intended ease is, 2 to 4 inches of positive ease.
Right.
So that's the size I would have said to go for. But because we were using slightly thinner yarn, that's why I then said, no, let's do the 46, because even if it comes out at 44 or 43, that's still going to be fine. So I think we're cool.
Excellent news. Thank you so much.
And it looks good.
I'm so thrilled about that.
I think it's cool and it looks beautiful.
Well, that's excellent. So
I'm thrilled.
it's the
Isn't it
Cascades.
gorgeous?
It's Michelle Wong. It's hard, but it's tremendously rewarding.
And I love the colour. You see, this is what I mean about garments. And I suppose that's not boring, but it's it's very repetitive, isn't it?
What are you on about? The
pattern.
Yeah, it's repetitive, but there's a huge amount going on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nuts.
But I think with me, it's more the yarn. I get bored with the yarn. And I prefer garments with plain yarns like that. That's exactly the type of garment I love, but I don't necessarily want to knit that type of garment.
You enjoy short projects.
Because
So
I think it's because I
that's
get
the most
bored
perfect.
working with the same yarns.
Working with the same yarn, but also, you know.
And I like to get things finished.
But
you know?
but also, I know what you're saying. With the way that you are and the way that your brain works, you would get bored with doing that over and over and over and over again.
Because that's like when I knit your vest, the green vest.
Yeah.
Although there was a lot going on, it was the same repeat over and over.
Now,
I just like things with
the
lots
reason
of...
why that works for you, that garment works for you, is because it's loads. Essentially, it's a load of different projects.
It absolutely is.
So it's really clever.
Like if each section, because there's a schematic inside it in the pattern, and all of the sections are numbered. So when you've finished each one, it's like you've finished a little project. That's what it feels like. So that's another reason, really, why
It's very clever.
I'm really enjoying it.
I hope you're ready, because I'm about to ask.
It's right here.
What else is on your needles?
Right here.
Show us.
I have a sock of 2 socks.
A sock of 2 socks.
It's a story of 2 socks.
Tale
of 2 socks. There we go. I was trying to think of the comparison to a book.
Yes.
It's a tale of 2 socks. Because this is a pair of socks for Bryony, and I initially cast on with a different yarn, but there's a huge but. And the huge but is... I'll stop saying but. I've got an issue with the yarn. The issue I've got is not the fault of the yarn at all. It's lovely yarn. It's just, I'll tell you what the yarn is. I bought this skein of yarn because I was attracted by the colour and I really like the base. Now the yarn is from Mad Scientist Yarns. It's a UK dyer. And the base is one that I've used before, but only in a little bookmark that I made for Bryony. It's the one that's got lurex in it rather than stellina, and the lurex is wrapped around the outside of the yarn, you know, rather than stellina being kind of bits of it all over. It's wrapped around the yarn, and it's very, very sparkly. I think and the lurex looks like it's more sparkly than stellina. So it's superwash merino, nylon and lurex, and it's 400 metres to 100 grams. Standard kind of meterage to weight for a sock weight yarn, fingering weight yarn. But it's very, very plump. I say that as if it's a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. when you're knitting socks and you're used to knitting them with a certain sort of gauge of yarn, if you then, you know, come along and cast on your usual stitch count, but the yarn turns out to be much thicker, it made it really uncomfortable to knit on 2.25mm needles. So this is the colourway, and the colour's called Rayleigh Scattering. And Mad Scientist Yarns, that's the label, all of their yarns are sort of based on scientific things. So Rayleigh Scattering, I looked this up, it's the phenomenon that causes the sky to be blue, basically. And it's amazing. Look at that. It's just an amazing colour. And I got this because Brian is really loving blue at the moment, although she's always loved blue actually. But I thought, oh my goodness, it's like interstellar socks for Bryony. So I cast them on and I started knitting with him, and I thought, gosh, you know, for starters I thought this yarn is really thick, but I thought, no, I'll carry on. And I was knitting my prairie socks pattern, and I didn't get very far, and you can see how incredibly sparkly that yarn is. It's just amazing. What happened when I started knitting this is fairly soon I realised it was going to pool. It was going to pool in a swirl. You can see my face. However, I thought, do you know what? It actually kind of works because it looks like a galaxy. Can you see what I mean by that? It just looks like that kind of night sky, doesn't it? But then, because I was just really struggling with how uncomfortable it was, you know, when you knit a thick yarn with small needles, it's awkward, isn't it? And just a combination of those things. And also it looked really small, it looked super small, and I think it was knitting up, you know, because it's knitting up really dense, that was giving me quite a small, you know, here it felt quite small. So I thought, right, okay, I'm going to stop knitting this. And I think what I will do is I will recast it on, but I'll use a bigger needle. And just to show you the comparison between the thickness between this and, let's just get a normal, this is just a normal fingering weight, it's what I'm actually knitting with now. I'll show you that in a second, but if I hold them both up, you can see the difference. I hope you'll be able to see the difference between the thickness. So this pale blue is like a standard fingering weight, and then you've got the other one next to it. I think it's quite a lot plumper. So what I think I will do is I will cast on with maybe a 2.5 or even a 2.75 and do like 60 stitches if I do 2.75. But then I've got the worry that will make it pool even more. So I don't know, maybe I'll use this yarn for something else. You know what I feel like with the pooliness. You know, although if it swirls around like that, it might look really cool. When I get to the heel, something else is going to happen around there, isn't it? And that, I might not like that. So I thought, right, let's put that down and I will use that yarn for something else, and let's cast on a different yarn. So I asked Bryony, I said, look, I'm going to start you a pair of socks. Let's do a Harry Potter pair of socks. What would you like? And I got a number of yarns that I could use, and she chose this one. So London House Yarns, Hermione's jumper, and it's the Stellina base. And this is mimicking one of the jumpers that Hermione wears in one of the films. I can't remember which film it is, but it's the jumper that's grey with all these different coloured stripes on it. Really lovely. And I got it in a sock set with a mini, and I went for the blue mini, and this picks out one of the colours in the sock. So I cast this on, and I'm just to the heel flap. And I've got a tiny bit of it, not an issue, but I'll explain to you. Isn't it great? Look! It's really fun. So it's just a plain sock because of these stripes. Now, I always put in a heel flap and heel turn and standard sort of gusset decreases, which with self-striping yarn, I don't find to be an issue because I use a square heel turn, so there's less gusset decreases. It always seems to work out fine. With this self-striping, because it's got a thinner stripe, I am a bit bothered about what that's going to look like over the gusset. So what I've done is I've stopped the leg at the point of where it's just going to turn grey again, because that's the biggest section of stripe. The colours are only 2 rounds each, and some of the areas, a few stitches, it's only 1 round as well. But the grey section is kind of 1, 2, 3, at the deepest bit is 4 rounds. So I thought, right, if I stop it at that point, then that means I've got the most chance of it not disturbing it, you know, as much as possible. And I'm just going to see what it looks like. I think it'll be okay. Those 4 rounds will give me a couple of decreases, and then hopefully by then it won't affect the 2 round stripe too much. But we'll just see how it goes. And Bryony won't mind whatever it looks like. I think it'll be, you know, it's a pretty thing anyway. And the blue picks out this kind of darker blue that you've got here, if you can see it. I think you could have had red as the mini as well, but I knew she'd prefer blue. I knit this all one morning. I stuck on a Harry Potter and felt sorry for myself and drank loads of liquids and knit a leg of a sock. So just my normal 2.25mm and 64 stitches. And I've got it in my Dobby bag, which is one of my favourites. Oh, lovely. So there we go.
Excellent. Keeping the garment train rolling.
Oh my goodness.
It's time for the clay quat, and this is simple at the moment. Nice and straightforward, which is good because it's enabling me to focus in on the issues which I desperately want to avoid, and that is not having sleeves which would fit a monkey.
They're a little long on the last jumper.
And so Kay and I compared notes and came up with a cunning plan. Here is one finished sleeve. Lovely colour work on the bottom. I love I'm really sort of looking at it. Oh, that looks nice.
It's lovely.
It's lovely fabric. I really like it. You're supposed to finish it off and cast off a certain amount for under the arm and all of that. And we spoke about it and we came to the conclusion that actually what made a lot of sense was to try and avoid any arm length disasters was first of all to just shoot slightly under what I thought might be, you know, the desired length. And considering the other ones were like 4 inches too long, I've shot an inch shorter than what I thought it should be.
Yeah.
So I'm at about 20 inches here. As you'll see, they're still on the needles. And also, here is yarn. So if they need extending, I can extend them. And I'll tell you, you know, how we'll do that in a second. But look, I've cast on another one. Nice fresh ball of yarn, and we're off again. So I will knit, you know, exactly the same amount of rows, exactly the same length, and then I'll get on with the body and finish the body, and then we'll pull the arms up, and we'll see where they're sitting. You know, we'll hold them in.
Is it top down or bottom up?
It's bottom up. It's bottom up.
Right.
But that's fine because I'll have knit up and I've finished it.
But normally, what you do is you normally work to here.
Right.
You then attach the sleeves.
Right.
And then work the rest with the sleeves attached. I didn't realise it was bottom up. I thought it was. I don't know what I thought, because you wouldn't be knitting sleeves separately. Because you came up with this idea without really asking me, so...
Well, I mean,
I don't know, because I could pull it on...
Up to there. And then hold the sleeves in place.
Put the sleeves on.
Yeah.
And then see. We should be able to cobble something together, shouldn't we?
Because, look, it's all right saying this sleeve needs to be this length, but then the gauge of the body will dictate where the underarm is going to fall, won't it?
Well, the gauge of your body should be the same as the gauge of your sleeve.
Yeah, that's all lovely, but surely until you've knit it, you don't know quite where that underarm is going to fall. Because the underarm on the solia, the last time you put that on, the underarm on the solia is not where you... Like this. Hold this up. I'm not going to stick my hand there again. Hold it up. Just hold it up.
You're going to tickle me.
I'm not. I swear to you, I'm not. I'm not. All I want to say... Look. Do you see where this sleeve
This is a back wing.
Yeah, I realise that, but my point is a simple one, and that is... It's all right saying the sleeve needs to be 21 inches long.
Right.
But if the way you're attaching it is 2 inches further down the arm...
But my brain's
Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, because the pattern knows that. The pattern knows that. So if you follow the dimensions of the pattern, you should be cool. And I've been saying
it's all right
this to you
saying
all along.
that, though, but that just didn't... We followed the dimensions to the pattern on the solia, to the letter.
We did, and the sleeves were really long on the solia.
We followed it to the letter, so I think you have to apply a bit more sort of
But that
real
can't be
life logic.
true, because what's the point in writing a pattern and telling you what to knit to if it's going to vary for everybody?
But surely it's going to vary for everybody.
But not
'Cause we're all
not
different.
enough. We are all different, but not 4 inches different.
So why were those sleeves 4 inches
I
too
don't
long?
know why they were 4 inches
Because
too long.
your underarm to your wrist is 21 inches.
Yeah, and that's what we
The
knitted
pattern said
to.
21 inches.
We knitted,
I knitted to
that,
21
I know.
inches.
And it didn't block that much longer. Because
So-
I tried it on unblocked and they were...
Yeah. Now, I suppose my question is, how much is this going to stretch?
It's non-superwash, so it shouldn't stretch as much.
Right.
No, it was the same yarn as the Solia, wasn't it?
Okay, I think it is, yeah.
So
So it is going to stretch.
it shouldn't stretch. I don't think the Solia did stretch.
We'll get there. I say we continue with this plan because at least I can adjust. Once we've knit
So
up,
stressful.
and
Oh,
we've knit-
stop!
Sorry.
Stop it!
We can hold the arm in place, can't we? We can look at where.
Stop
we can
tickling me!
Look at where it's falling. And
Well,
then if
I can
need to
probably
extend
even
it.
put it on over this jumper because the jumper's not anything.
Oh,
But I've done this
Tricky.
before. That it won't go on over the jumper because the DPNs are stopping it. But
Yeah.
the cuff fit well though, didn't
Yes,
it? And
yes.
I tried it on to a point before.
yeah.
On a bare arm and it was fine.
Follow my progress on the return to the centre of the yoke. What else is on your needles?
Right, the last thing I've got today is my Joji inspired blanket. I don't know what to call this. Maybe I'll just call it my Joji blanket. The garter stitch one that I've shown you before. And I've knit loads on this. I'm going great guns because it's just been the kind of project that's been perfect for how I've been feeling lately, that's not taxing at all, and I can play with colour. I don't know why this realisation has just suddenly struck me, that I enjoy things the most when I'm playing around with colour. I don't know why it's only just struck me, but there we go. But look how far I am now. Oh my goodness. How lovely is that? I'm just thrilled with it. I think the last time you saw it, I was down here. So I've done all of this and I'm using like a really bright, one of the yarns is very bright at the moment. So I'm holding 3 fingering weight yarns. These are the current 3. So I'm holding them triple effectively. I'm using 6mm needles. I think Joji actually used 6.5, but I'm using 6mm. I'm using higher bamboos, which with this lovely green, it's the fixed one, so it's got this lovely green cord. It's lovely. I cast on 96 stitches for this panel. And the only thing I'm doing differently to Joji is I'm adding a little I-cord edge to each side. So I just slip the last 2 stitches of every row just to add a sort of little I-cord edge. Because what I'm thinking I will do, well, it's giving me an option actually. I may just use it as this. And it's actually wide enough to go across me. So as a lap blanket, it would be fine. But as like a huge wrap as well, it would be great. Or I might want to add another panel to the side. So I would pick up under that edge and then knit another panel long ways in maybe a different colour. Maybe I'd go with blues on that side. But for this, I'm sticking with pinks, peaches and purpley sort of shades. Oh, and I think it's just lovely. I've nearly done with this peachy colour. You can see that's almost finished. So what I'm doing is when one runs out, I'm just choosing another yarn and magic knotting it and then carrying on. So there's no ends, there's only the beginning end and the end I will have to weave in, and it's just lovely. It's grown so quickly. I think I know the one that Joji's knitting, hers is all sort of grey shades because that's what she had the most of, sort of leftover yarns. So I'm just really loving it, just really enjoying it, and I've just been knitting loads and it's so squishy and I just can't wait to have it as a blanket. I think it's going to be fantastic. So you can see in this ginormous bag I've got all of these yarns. I didn't have many darker sort of shades of pink. I had lots of lovely pretty delicate shades, so I bought a few that I'll show you in Endy Bits just to add that kind of darker pink pop every now and again. Done?
Excellent, that's really good because we can now get out for our very first ever. Yes, get out. We can now get out for our very first ever Minton Summit on New Adventures. When we planned this, we had no expectation or realisation quite how Edmund Hillary-esque it would all become.
Indeed.
Oh my goodness. So without further ado, I think that we should get out and we should begin our summit of the rather lovely Roseberry topping. Of course, along the way, we will be continuing and discovering the rest of the story of the rather amazing Captain James Cook. Welcome to a brand new season of new adventures. Over the next 8 episodes, we've lined up some of the most exciting stories and destinations that we've ever uncovered. In past seasons, we focused on the stories of kings, queens, and lords of the manor. But this year, we're going to shift the focus to discover the story of people like you and me. Because for every fort, stately home, and castle, there were hundreds of houses that surrounded them. And over the last 2,000 years, those houses became the towns and villages that make up England. So join us in 2019 as we uncover the most important pieces of history we've ever investigated. This is the story of England, and these are the new adventures of the Bakery Bears. Welcome back to Captain Cook's monument, just up the road from the gorgeous village of Great Ayton. Last time, we uncovered young James Cook's story from his childhood to his first voyages at sea. But now it's time for us to follow in the footsteps of James Cook and take a walk up not a particularly large hill. It's twinned with the Matterhorn, but this is the place which gave James his lust for adventure. It's called Roseberry Topping, and it's just over there. And here it is, or at least it should be. We have a bit of a sea fretting today, but particularly appropriate, I think, when you consider the subject matter of James Cook and the amount of sea frets that he will have encountered on the Endeavour. Neil, this mysterious hill has fascinated people for thousands of years. On a clear day, it can be seen from at least 50 miles away. Today it is not a clear day, so it's going to be a very mysterious and fun walk, I think. And it's made from stone, sandstone, laid down in the Middle Jurassic period. So it's no wonder, really, that Bronze Age man identified this as the perfect place to set up home. Now you're going to have to trust me when I tell you that behind that mist is Roseberry topping. And in 1826, a huge hoard of Bronze Age material was found on the lower slopes of this hill. The presence of spearheads and shields show us that settlements here must have been fairly substantial. And that Bronze Age settlement led to Iron Age man most probably using this as a hill fort. We'll discover more about that later. And also, the majority of the lumps and bumps, which we'll see on the way up today, are going to be dating from that Iron Age period. Now, over the years, there have been many archaeological digs done here at Roseberry topping, and those lumps and bumps are all that remains of walled enclosures our Iron-Aged ancestors used to control their animals, and the roundhouses that they used to live in. When James Cook was a young boy, our knowledge of the past was a fraction of what we know today. So it's no surprise that when he first ventured up Roseberry topping and he saw those lumps and bumps, he would have wondered who had created them, what manner of beast had lived there, and I bet he was absolutely enthralled by what he saw. But we need to address the question on everybody's lips. How did this hill get such a unique name? Would you believe it's actually Viking? Now, as we discovered in the first season of New Adventures, they arrived here in 870 AD, and when they saw Roseberry topping, they absolutely loved it. And if we cast our eyes up to the very summit of Roseberry topping, it's so easy to see why this mysterious place appealed to them so much. Look! You could quite easily imagine any one of the Viking gods appearing from the mists, maybe Thor or Loki, but it was Odin who, according to the Vikings, created this place. So of course, they named it Odin's Rock. Now, the Old Norse for Odin was Othin, and the Old Norse for rock was Bjarg, so the Vikings would have known this place as Othin's Bjarg. As the centuries passed, we humans tend to change words a little, don't we? We make them just that little bit easier to say. So Othinsburg became Ohensburg, then Ownsbury, and finally Osbury, until some bright spark thought Osbury sounds a bit like Roseberry. Stuck an R on the front, and we have our Roseberry. Topping is just Old Yorkshire, it's Old Yorkshire dialect. Topping means the top of a hill. And we finally have a rather mysterious pudding-like name. So what exactly is the plan today in this very special episode of New Adventures? Well, it's simple. Together, we shall explore the hill which James Cook always said had given him his insatiable thirst for adventure. James would have first walked this exact path with his dad around 1739, and he would have looked on this hill. In fact, anyone who came up this path would have looked on this hill with exactly the same feelings that we do now, with awe and fascination. Along the way, with a little bit of help from some very special friends, we will uncover the story of James's years at sea. And with a bit of luck, we'll find somewhere lovely for a little knit and a picnic as we continue our climb upward. But this is not actually my first time here. Now, the one and only time that I visited Roseberry topping before was about 20 years ago. And would you believe that just like today, a sea fret dropped in? When we got to the top, couldn't really see a hand in front of my face. Navigating back down was challenging to say the least, because around here there's paths leading off in all sorts of different directions. Because of those Bronze Age and Iron Age settlements, people have been moving around this hill and these hills for just generations. And I wonder if when James Cook climbed this hill, when he got his passion for Roseberry topping, I wonder if the navigating of Roseberry topping, of finding his way up and down, lay the seeds for his fascination with that exact subject. Navigation. Now, when we left James, it was 1755, and he'd just begun his career in the Royal Navy. Within 3 years, he'd already surpassed the expectations of most young men from a similar background, as he found himself promoted to ship's master. This was a post perfectly suited to James Cook, as the ship's master is responsible for navigation. But there's a reason James's mum spent so much time praying for his safety, because the Royal Navy was not a particularly safe place to be in the 18th century, and it was to battle that James went in 1758 at Louisbourg in Nova Scotia. The British were challenging French rule in North America, and after their victory here, after a sea battle and a siege of the town's fort, James found himself walking along Kennington Cove Beach. Now, this really is the pivotal moment in James's life, because walking along that beach, he saw a young man named Samuel Holland. And Samuel Holland was using something called a plane table. And he was using it to map pretty much what we're going up now, the topography of landscapes. But what James quickly realised that no one had thought of before was that he could use that plane table to measure distances at sea. This is a plane table, and what James realised was that if you positioned it on the deck of a ship and you look back at a point that you've travelled from, you can take that distance measured and apply it to anything within sight. In one stroke, James had created a tool for navigating and map making, which would in time take him to the ends of the known world. We all have to start somewhere, and his first job was to use his newfound skills to map key parts of Canada. This is the St. Lawrence River, and it was here that James Cook first applied the plane table to his map making, and the results were outstanding. This is a picture of the map he created. Its scientific accuracy brought him to the attention of the Royal Navy admirals, and it planted the seed that would blossom into his 3 famous voyages of discovery. It's so poignant to be walking in James Cook's footsteps here at Roseberry Topping, the place where his thirst for adventure was found. Now, Roseberry Topping is actually considered a mountain because it's over 1,000 feet. And whilst much of the landscape around here has stayed the same and would look familiar to James Cook, Roseberry Topping has changed. Take a look. Here is an engraving from 1881. This is the mountain as James Cook and all who came before him would have known it. The profile changed forever though, one night in 1912. Thanks to a combination of heavy rainfall and years of mining on the lower slopes, part of the mountain slid away. But this was a blessing in disguise, because it led to the site becoming a huge tourist attraction in the years that followed. And it actually remains the same to this day. Thousands of people make the climb up Roseberry Topping, but I wonder how many of them stop for a little knit. Shall we see if we can find the perfect spot to do a few rows on my lovely sock? Let's do it. I found the perfect spot. I'm actually getting warm now. So I'm going to remove some of my knitted garments and get out a knitted garment to knit. Oh yes, I'm betting that no one stops on this seat and has a little knit. What do you reckon? Now, can you believe the plane table? That thing which you see people all the time stood at the side of the road. It's normally when building work's going on or when roads are being extended or built. That device that they're using, that's in effect a digital version of the device which James Cook spotted Samuel Holland using, and what he realised that positioned on a deck, he could measure distances and he could create unbelievable maps. And I genuinely had always wondered what that was. I never really understood what they were doing. So it's just fascinating, isn't it, to realise that that was the thing, that was the moment which, and was this the place which planted those seeds? It must have been, mustn't it? I like to think actually that, granted there wouldn't have been this bench here, but maybe James and his dad stopped for a little rest, because it is a sort of natural leeway on the way up to the summit. It is an unbelievable day today, and it's so
similar to the last time I came up here, and I was so disappointed that time before because the views from the top are absolutely astounding. But we're fortunate, aren't we? Because last episode we got those views effectively from the top of Captain Cook's monument. What I'm really enjoying today is the fact that, you know, sea frets are one of those things which just affect people at sea, and so to have one today here as we're climbing Roseberry Topping is just, it's so poignant and so sort of perfect in a way. At least I can see my knitting. So the invention of the plane table opened up effectively the world to James Cook, and using it he began to map areas previously just undreamt of. The Royal Navy, after 5 years of him doing that in Newfoundland, quickly realised they had someone a bit special in James Cook, and so they decided to send him on 3 voyages of discovery.
Along the way, he would discover new lands. In a ship built in the town where he had originally taken to sea.
And if you want to find out about all that, you're going to have to come back for part 2. So we'll see you then.
Oh my goodness, what a day. I mean,
Amazing.
it's like climbing Everest. Honestly, just unbelievable, and so freaky that it's happened the 2 times I've been there. That's exactly the same thing. So
Crazy weather.
I figure that it happens a lot.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, granted, I've only been there twice in 25 years, but still, 100% success rate with weather similar to Everest. Now, the other thing that I just find really interesting about that place is it's sort of universally agreed that the reason why Great Ayton is quite so well sort of apportioned with restaurants and cafes and, you know, the modern amenities which you would expect in a town. It's because of the money which, after that landslide and the shape took on, you know, the thing similar to the Matterhorn, the Victorians just went, whoa, this is cool, we're going to go there lots. So it's got a railway station and, you know, all the things. It's a village, but it feels like a town. And it does make it, as we found out in the first episode of New Adventures, you know, I would strongly recommend that you go to Great Ayton because it is just such a lovely place. We, though, will be continuing our journey. Will we reach the summit? Who knows? You'll have to tune in find out later on in this show. Now, it's time for us to find out because I'm very excited about this. It's our Easter special. What's off your Nostopina?
Before I show you that, I'll just tell you what I'm wearing actually. I totally forgot earlier to mention it. This is my Ollivander shawl that I designed, gosh, a few years ago now. And we took photos of this at the station, didn't we, that they used in the first film as Hogsmeade.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful railway station, and we went there to take photos of this for the pattern. So, fingering weight shawl, 2 colours, and I used the Fibonacci mathematical sequence for the stripes in it, and then I did a little edging which reflects Ollivander's ladder in his shop. So it's my Ollivander shawl. So right, what's off my Nostopina? First of all, so this is the Nostopina that I bought. We showed it to you earlier. It's very much like a wand. Bryony, when it came, she just said to me, why have you bought a wand, Mum? So it's not, and you know, they do have ones that are shorter than this and more sort of elaborately carved, but this just appealed to me because of the simplicity, I suppose, and obviously I thought it looked like a wand as well. And I just got this from Amazon. It was like £6 on Amazon, and it's proper wood. It's walnut, I believe. I'm sure it said it was walnut. £6, I mean, that's just brilliant, isn't it? And it came the next day. So I thought, right, let's have a play. I've never made a yarn ball on one of these before, so I watched a couple of tutorials. There's loads on YouTube. Just Google how to wind yarn on a Nostopina and loads come up. You can make it look 2 different ways as I understand it. You can make it so it's more of a yarn cake that we're sort of used to seeing, you know, a more sort of square, flat, round shape, if you know what I mean. Or you can make them look more like an egg. I didn't deliberately do this, I just started winding it. And both times I tried it, I made eggs. So as it's Easter, it seemed very appropriate to make you some little yarn eggs. And look, they look exactly like eggs. They're very pretty, look. Don't you think?
Can I look at him?
And this one pulls from the centre. You can see it's got a lovely little tail. And this one I didn't. The centre is in there. It's still got the big hole up the middle, look. It didn't close in. You can look all the way through. Can you see us through it?
Yeah, I saw that before. I want to see if I can make egg specks.
Egg specks. Oh, that looks weird.
I look like one of those.
Oh, you do? What do you look like? One of those fish with the eyes that move all around. What are they? Is it a fish?
And there's a reptile, isn't there?
Oh, yeah, it's not a fish. It's a chameleon.
Iguana? A chameleon.
Is it a chameleon or an iguana? Yeah. Oh, stop it! It's horrible. So yeah, I made 2 of these. Now, what will I say about this? Okay, if you've got loads of time on your hands and you want to make some pretty yarn eggs, what struck me was I thought, oh, for Easter you could send these to a friend, couldn't you? You could just get like a traditional egg box and fill it.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
Wouldn't that be brilliant
Yeah,
for somebody's scrappy blanket? And I think that's a great idea. This is a bit more than 20 grams, but this was a 20 gram mini, so it does make a very standard, imagine an egg. It makes that kind of size, a 20 gram one. And look, pulls from the middle, that one. So to pull from the middle, you just have to make sure the tail's kind of, when you wind it, you need to sort of make sure that the tail's kind of dangling out like that before you start winding. I didn't do that the first time. Because to be honest, I don't generally pull from the middle for any, for a yarn cake. I always pull from the outside because I don't like the way they collapse. Once you start pulling from the middle, they go flat like that, don't they? They collapse.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I prefer just pulling from the outside. But I thought, well, I'll try it again and to pull from the middle, and it works. I couldn't get it to, because when I wind a little mini, into just a normal ball, I always make sure that I wind around my fingers so that it's not too tight, so you don't get a golf ball.
Yeah.
Some minis that that I've occasionally been sent that people have wound, it's like a golf ball. It's so hard, and I don't think that's good for the yarn. And this isn't, it is quite firm, and I couldn't, because you're winding around a solid thing, there's no, if you try and do it looser, it tends to just fall off. You've got to have a certain amount of tension to keep the wraps like there.
Yeah.
So it's quite a firm thing. I think I prefer just winding it into a little ball so that the yarn's not under that sort of stress. But it was fun. It took me, I'll be honest, 20 minutes to wind a 20 gram mini. I suppose you might get quicker.
It may be one of those things that...
You might get quicker.
If you've grown up using them, it probably makes the absolute most sense. But if you haven't, you probably need to want to have
a go, yeah.
Well, you probably need to want to have little eggs.
Yeah, you don't have to make this egg shape. You can wind it in a slightly different way, and it produces a sort of more ball-shaped one, a slightly flatter.
Right.
But I couldn't get it to do that. Each time I did it, I produced eggs. So clearly that must just be how I wind them. And I love the look of them. I think, for a special gift for someone, 6 of these in an egg box for someone for their blanket or scrap projects or whatever, I think is just such a lovely gift.
And also,
it was fun to try it.
Also, the Nostapina just merely links us even more into the wizarding world. Does it not?
Well, it does, doesn't it?
It is a wand.
It is. It's like
as simple as that.
It's a knitting wand, isn't it?
Anyway, lovely.
So yes.
What a lovely pair of
eggs.
Easter eggs.
Fun thing to try, and if you haven't tried it and want to give it a go, you can get these things cheap enough. And I could have gone to a specialist, wood carver type person.
Well,
and
you
that
would
have been
if you were like a regular.
Yes. Yeah, but when I just wanted to give it a go, this was perfect. So it was very fun.
A very Eastery, I'm sure you'll agree, what's off your Nostapina. That's the one and only time we should be running that segment. And now it's time for us to go back to Roseberry topping. There's still so much to discover, like the Voyages of Discovery. And I didn't forget to score it for Knitability. I'm going to do that at the end of the show. And the reason for that is there was a queue to sit on the seat that I was sat on.
Crazy.
So without further ado, let's get back to Roseberry topping and finish off the story of James Cook.
Welcome back to New Adventures. Now, would you believe that this is a summer house? It's one of the many mysterious things about Roseberry Topping. Because how could this be a summer house? Some people say that it's a shooting lodge, but historians have now analysed it fully, and what they think it actually is was a place for Victorian ladies to rest on their way up to the summit.
It was built, we think, in the late 18th century. This fell at a time when follies were appearing within the landscape all over England. These structures were built to add interest to the landscape, and it's thought that this was one of those buildings. One of the many mysteries of the summer house is its stonework.
First of all, the outside stones look pretty good, but the inside stones look really weathered. It doesn't make sense, does it? Because the weathering should have taken place on the outside. But the reason for that, archaeologists think, is because these stones have been reused. They had come from the original mines, mines that were on the foot of Roseberry Topping, the mines that were there when James Cook was climbing here. So these stones, these outer stones, may well have been walked past by James and his father.
Who built it? Nobody really knows, but there is a rumour we can thank the owner of the nearby Ayton Hall for this puzzling addition to the local landscape.
You can actually see here, these catches set in the large stones. That means that these were put in, these were original, and what they must have been for is for shutters that used to close across these windows. So perhaps this was a shelter for budding mountaineers as they set off up Roseberry Topping. And speaking of Roseberry Topping, we've got a mountain to climb, so let's get cracking.
On the 14th of August 1768, the newly promoted Captain James Cook and his crew of 94 men set sail on their ship, the Endeavour, on the first voyage of discovery. By April 1769, they had arrived in uncharted territory, and they began mapping parts of the world we had never seen before. After 5 months' work, they left Tahiti, and on the 7th of October 1769, the Endeavour sights New Zealand for the first time. They spend the next few months using the plane table to map it.
It was the year 1770 when things really got exciting, because that was the year that James Cook arrived in Australia. And with the help once again of the rather wonderful Grace O'Neill, we can now walk in his footsteps.
James Cook's log of his first voyage of discovery gives us the exact date and time that he and his crew appeared off this headland to become the first Europeans to sight the eastern coast of Australia. It was 6 a.m. on Thursday the 19th of April 1770 when this coastline was spotted.
On the 29th of April, Captain Cook made landfall right here, in a place he initially called Stingray Bay, but botanists within his crew found unique specimens not far from their landing craft, so that night he renamed it Botany Bay.
While the Endeavour was anchored at Botany Bay, James followed one of the ancient indigenous Australian tracks to Port Jackson, some 10 kilometres away. He noted the full extent of the deep natural harbour. This was key information which led to the founding of the modern city of Sydney just 8 years later. After 4 weeks, it was time for the Endeavour to leave Botany Bay, and they sailed past Newcastle Point on their way to their second landing site.
So we found a monument that marks the exact point where Captain Cook landed. It says, "Under the lee of this point, Lieutenant James Cook landed on the 24th of May, 1770.
And this is it. This is where it all took place. We're looking at the spot where the Endeavour anchored after locating an appropriate inlet right here for Cook to lead a party ashore. He'd noted actually a great deal of smoke coming from fires just in from the beach. So he went ashore and he inspected a group of 10 fires which were scattered with cockle shells, clear evidence of indigenous Australian occupation. And if you happen to be passing here in May, you could witness the community of 1770 coming together to reenact Cook's Landing in their annual festival.
They also say that upon the shore, Cook and his men saw a species of bustard, one with which was shot. It was like a large turkey and weighed 17.5 pounds. It was the best bird they'd eaten since leaving England, and in honour of it they called the inlet Bustard Bay. Cook and his men also caught fish from the ship and harvested oysters from under the mangroves along the shore to eat while on their journey. And these are the mangroves where they are able to harvest oysters. And we've seen a couple of people up the beach that have been doing that, and sounds delicious if you're into that sort of thing. There's a few interesting plaques here that tell us the information of how the Aboriginals saw Captain Cook and his crew when they first landed. And it says here, when Cook and his landing party came ashore, the local Aborigine people watched hidden from view. The tall leader, Cook, was clever as he directed the canoe and had a good look at two of their food trees, the fig and the Burdekin plum. The short leader, Banks, was not clever, and he was stung by ants and caterpillars and took away plants that were useless for food or medicine.
After 3 long years at sea, James finally returned home in 1771, and you would have thought that perhaps his thirst for adventure had been sated. Mine certainly is, climbing up Roseberry Top Inn in a sea freight. But no, he returned to sea from 1772 till 1775 for his second voyage of discovery, and he made discoveries that changed the face of the world, botanic and astronomical and all sorts. But it's now to his third and final voyage that we turn.
After less than a year at home, James Cook set sail once again, this time in search of the Northwest Passage. After 2 long years at sea, he arrived in Canada, and I'm delighted to say, with the help of Marcia Ibuki, we can go there now.
Welcome to Canada, specifically Vancouver Island on the west coast. I'm going to give you a little tour of the area in British Columbia, Canada, where Captain Cook landed and mapped along our entire coastline. In 1778, Captain James Cook arrived here in his quest to find the Northwest Passage. Along the way, he actually mapped for the first time the west coast of the Americas. He anchored just up the coast from here at Yakoi. After leaving Yakoi, Cook became the first man to explore and map the coast all the way to the Bering Strait. In his crew was a man named George Vancouver, who on seeing this island for the first time said it was the most lovely country that can be imagined. 11 years later, Vancouver returned here to negotiate who would control these lands and waters, and that's how this island got its name. It's amazing to think what effect this young sailor and his crew had on the world. Dan has already mentioned his connection to James Cook Memorial Hospital in Middlesbrough, and thousands of miles away on the other side of the world, just up the road from here in the city of Vancouver, is Captain James Cook Elementary School. And we're headed in that direction right now on the ferry crossing through the very waters that Captain Cook sailed.
After leaving Canada, James spent months trying to find a way through the frozen coastlines, still in search of that elusive Northwest Passage, but to no avail. As winter set in, he decided the best course of action was to make camp in Hawaii. Just 9 years after his arrival in Sydney, James Cook laid anchor here at Kealakekua Bay. His arrival coincided with the festival of Makahiki, and he and his men were treated as gods. After a month's stay, Captain Cook and his crew attempted to resume their voyage, but fate was against them, and specifically Captain Cook. They made once again for Kealakekua Bay, and on making landfall, tensions immediately arose. A group of unknown Hawaiians stole one of Cook's boats. On February the 14th, 1779, James marched into the village just inland from the bay and took the Hawaiian king hostage. His intention was to hold him until his boat was returned. As they headed back here to their boats, a large group of the Hawaiians began to form around their departing king. Unable to understand what was happening and fearing the worst, the inevitable happened. As James turned his back to help launch his boats, he was struck on the head and then stabbed to death as he fell into the surf. A story that had begun in the hills of North Yorkshire
ended abruptly on a distant shore, thousands of miles away from where it had begun. But we should not be disheartened, because he was 51 years old when he died. And in that century, the average life expectancy, 41 was old. So he was already 10 years past where so many other people would already have died. So he had a really good life. Secondly, though, James Cook knew exactly what he was doing. He'd got that quest, that thirst for adventure, and he was pushing the boundaries. He was living life to the full, and I sort of love that. You know, anyone who understands the risks and takes them for the betterment of all of us, well, that's really commendable, I think. But also, though, the people who were with him were some people who would go on. You know, we've spoken a lot about echoes, about what James Cook did and about how his actions have echoed down generations. And, you know, we've seen through the amazing footage that we've seen all over the world, you know, I can't think of many men who've left such a sort of tangible mark in so many corners of the globe. But someone who was with him on that final voyage was William Bligh. And you might know the name William Bligh because William Bligh was the man who was on the Bounty. He was the guy who cast adrift by Fletcher Christian and then managed to navigate using the skills that he was taught, that he learnt firsthand with James Cook. He navigated, didn't he? And he saved all those men on that tiny little boat. And he would not have done that. He wouldn't have been able to do that had it not been for James Cook. And the cool thing about William Bligh is, I think it was Queensland he ended up as governor as, but he ended up in Australia, which was obviously the country which James Cook discovered. Now, there's some controversy, isn't there, over did James Cook discover Australia? And I think it's been proven now that actually, I think it was the Portuguese that got there first. The difference was, though, James Cook could map it. And we've all heard the expression, haven't we? He put it on the map. Well, James Cook literally put Australia on the map. And I think that's why, for me, and I think many Australians would say as well, that James Cook discovered Australia. And I think as well it's worth touching on how his life finished, because it was tremendously sad. But it's hard to sort of point a finger at anyone in particular, because you can't blame the Hawaiians. Because for the Hawaiians, you know, these they thought were gods. And they'd come and they'd given them things, and, you know, the Europeans had been naughty because they'd taken it all and they'd played up to that sort of god. Oh yes, we're gods. And then they'd gone back again. So of course the Hawaiians were puzzled and frustrated and, hold on a minute, they've come, they've taken all this stuff, and now they've come back. So you can understand them wanting to go and take things, you know, as payment themselves. Hold on a minute, you took loads of our stuff, we'll have something of yours. And really, for me, Cook's death was just a huge misunderstanding, because off he toddles to go and talk to the king to say, look, you know, I need my boat back. And, you know, he shouldn't have done what he did, you know, because to the Hawaiians it looked like, you know, how, for all the Hawaiians knew, they were going to take him away and kill him, the king. So of course they would then attack Cook to protect their king. So, you know, Cook died thanks to a great big misunderstanding, really. I think that's certainly the way that it reads for me. But look, enough talk. My lunch. Here it is. This is becoming a tradition now, isn't it? Because this is exactly what I had last time, but I've gone slightly more glamorous this time. Because instead of just falafels, I also have blue cheese, which I love. And we found a lovely spot for a picnic. And something which always takes a picnic from one level to ultimate is a ginger shot, baby. Oh yes. I've been saving this to give me the energy for the final push to the summit. Here we go. This stuff's gorgeous. Now look, I need to score this for Knitability, which I neglected to do halfway up the mountain, but you'll forgive me for that because it was hard. It was hard to knit because my hands were so cold. The sea fret was coming in, so my project was getting wet. And there was people everywhere. It's so busy. Knitability, there are spots. You know, there are some seats. There's not a lot. It's quite steep. I've now been here twice, and both times there's been a sea fret. So I wonder if that's actually quite common. So I think for Knitability, it's not going to be a big score. 5, I think. Because you would struggle to find somewhere. Because even that little seat that we did sit on, there was people queuing up to sit on the seat. Picnic ability, it's still not great, because just take a look over here. Someone has had a barbecue and the table has proceeded to melt. And there's not a lot of picnic spots. Yes, again, you could have a rug out, but to be honest, it's so steep, your food would slide down the hill. So you'd have to eat on the go. So I think for picnic ability, we're probably talking a 5 again. It's not great. There's also nowhere to get stuff. There is a loo. We love a loo. But interestability is going to score a bit higher. Now, it's difficult this, because I don't want you to look at the score and think this is not a great destination, because let me tell you, it's amazing. It's amazing that we've got a mountain here on the fringes of Yorkshire, because I'm not aware of many more. But also, when you think about the impact that this mountain, Roseberry topping, had on Iron Age man, Bronze Age man, James Cook, the Vikings, the interest is huge. There's lots of lumps and bumps going up there. So there's lots, if I brought up the time team, they would find a lot of stuff. It would be highly interesting. So, if you know the story, if you know what you're looking for, it's quite interesting. So I think a fair score would be 7. Now that gives a total of 17. And I think that might be the lowest score that we've ever given on New Adventures. What I would do if I was coming here is I would go to Great Ayton, which is just down the road, and then I would head up here and I would go up the hill, and I would do that in the afternoon, because it's only really a 2-mile round trip, so you could get it in one day. So don't look at this score and think bad destination, because it most certainly is not. Enough chat. It's time for our push to the summit. This is insane. I'm telling you. This is it, folks. We've reached the summit of Odin's Rock. A home to Bronze Age man, a fascination to the Vikings, but above all, it was the mountain which spawned the fascination with navigation and adventure of James Cook, a man whose actions have echoed down the generations. From his christening here at St Cuthbert's in North Yorkshire,
to his death on a distant shore in Hawaii, James Cook led a life which transformed the world as we knew it.
And this small mountain on the outer fringes of Yorkshire was the catalyst for his never-ending quest for adventure. Now, many people, when they look upon the story of James Cook, with his tragic end, may have mixed feelings. But for me, as I look across the land which I call home, it's one of immense hope.
This was a boy born to a poor farmhand destined for an ordinary life working the fields. Against all odds, he demanded more from life, and my goodness, he got it. I realise now that James Cook's fight against what his life should have been inspires me in my continued fight against what could have been. What a journey this has been. 4 years in the making, and we did it together.
But now I think it's time for us to get on with the rest of the series. I'll see you next time for more new adventures.
That's it. Oh my goodness. I mean,
That was epic.
I can't quite believe it, to be honest. For,
You've put such a huge amount of work into that.
it's, I think because of just the whole linkage, it feels like I've closed a door.
Yeah.
Which is a really nice feeling. And something which has been so long in the planning. And
You've wanted to do it for years, haven't you?
yeah. And, we've discovered the reasons why over the course of the 2 episodes. And, I find it lovely and moving to feel that link to him. And, he really has, throughout my whole life, and for someone who was sort of sat on the periphery of my knowledge of what exactly he did.
Absolutely.
And I'm ashamed.
You know of him, don't you? Because you just do, but quite often with these people, you don't know the full story.
No.
Yeah.
So it's the biggest production that we've ever done. And, it's the perfect way to start this new season of New Adventures. And I can't believe that we're 2 episodes in already.
I know.
Everything that you see here is all produced thanks to our Bakery Bear patrons. And if you'd like to find out more about what it means to be a patron, you can read a little bit above and follow the link below, and you can find out how you can help keep us making the show and keep us on air. But now it's time to get excited about that next pudding club.
Oh, yes.
And I'm not sure what you're making.
Oh, right.
Which makes it even more exciting.
Well, it's going to be absolutely fabulous.
I hope so.
I hope so.
It better
too.
be.
I've got to buy some equipment.
You're joking.
It's not anything very glamorous, but
Okay.
I haven't got this particular thing.
That sounds fun.
I know.
Don't miss this. It's going to be amazing. Folks, can you believe it? Already, it's time for the Endy Bits.
Endy Bits.
Now, there's a few little Endy Bits that I needed to mention whilst you just collect your thoughts ready for your Endy Bits. Do you have a lot?
No, just these.
Okay, cool. So, Kay's Ultimate Socks, the loose stitch tutorial.
Oh.
People have loved that.
Oh, really?
I think that's now a couple back.
Right.
But last time we were here, that hadn't come out yet. And that's the sort of exciting bit of this series, isn't it? That was the new thing.
That was the new
that you'd
thing.
never ever shared before.
No.
So that's out now. The next pop, it's an important one because we'll be doing our first quarter of the Pyramid Cal prizes. So the next pop is on Sunday, the 28th of April at 2 p.m. British Summer Time. And that actually reminds me, when Cook was on his voyages, he never changed his clock.
Didn't he?
No.
Good man.
So-
So it was always on Greenwich time.
Always.
Right.
So when he sighted Australia at 6 a.m, I can't remember the
so that
exact
was
date.
London time.
In 1770. That was London time.
Right.
So they worked to the same clock.
That must have been
No matter where they
confusing
went.
though, because the other side of the world it would be dark when it
I know.
was.
I know. How crazy is that? So actually, whilst the date is one particular day, after they sort of analysed his logs, it's actually now known to be accepted that it was the day after.
Oh, right, okay.
Which is really funny, isn't
Right.
it? You don't think about that, do you?
No.
Especially back then, when, that wouldn't have been something which was thought about quite
No,
so much.
no.
Crazy stuff. So the next pop, 20th of April, 2 p.m. BST. The next Knitability is issue 19, and it's out on the 30th of April at the latest. And it's the biggest edition we've ever done. Hoey was so generous with her time. Thank you so much. It's the best interview ever. But not only that, it's Joji Locatelli, of course. We've got Jade Prosser, just superb interview, wonderful pictures. That will be out in issue 19. And of course, there'll be some monthly musings from Kay and an article from me out by the 30th of April. What are your Endy Bits?
I've just bought some yarn for my Hohi inspired blanket.
Yes.
And this was funny actually because I ordered these 3 skeins and then I just thought, I'll go and have a look in my stash. Maybe I have got something I can just use for now. And I went in my stash and I pulled out 3 other skeins that I could have used. So I did actually have something I could have used. I mean, that's terrible, isn't it? But anyway, it's fine. They will get used.
You knew before you blooming ordered
I didn't. It was sheer laziness.
None of you believe her, do you? Because I certainly don't. And that's what all of you do, isn't it? I'm sure I don't have that particular colour in my stash.
I honestly, genuinely didn't think I had. And then I went and found some. But, I wanted sort of brighter and darker tones of pink. So I've got these 2 skeins of Cascade. This one's Cascade Heritage, and this one is Cascade Heritage Paints. I think this is Fuchsia, but I'm not sure what this is called. It's number 9901, but it's one of the paints ones. It's variegated. And then I picked up one of these as well, which looks really interesting. It's by, I say Sheepies, I'm certain that's not how you say it, but you know the brand, it's that one there. And it's called Our Tribe is the range. And it's a sock yarn, so it's 420 metres for 100 grams. And it's a 70-30, so 70% superwash merino, 30% polyamide. But it's a single ply. It reminds me a bit of like a Zauberball type thing, look. And this is more coral. I wanted a corally sort of colour one. Isn't that pretty? And at first when I saw it, I thought, it doesn't look very strong, that. But actually, because I saw it and I thought, oh, maybe I want to knit socks with this rather than put it in my blanket. But it's a single ply, and I thought, no, maybe not. But actually, I've found the end and tried to pull it apart, and I can't. So it is actually a really strong yarn. So I might, because it's so pretty, I might actually use this for socks instead, and I'll have leftovers that I can put into the blanket, because I only use 60, 70 grams really for socks for me. But isn't it pretty, that? They do all different colours, and it was $7.99 for a 100 gram ball, which I think is great value.
Yeah.
And this colour I got is, I don't even want to try and pronounce it, it's colour number 963.
Hakmarak.
There you go. That's the colourway name.
It's Klingon.
It does sound Klingon. It does, doesn't it? It sounds when Captain Kirk speaks Klingon, it sounds like that.
That's really funny.
It's very soft. Might be nice for like bed socks or something, and it'll produce a really nice gradient, won't it?
Yeah.
And I do actually have another ball of this in just a plain pale grey that I could use for heels and toes. So give that a go if you've not tried it. It looks really nice. Or if you have knit socks with it, let me know in the comments what they're like. I'd be interested to know. So there we go. That's my little purchases.
Now, that is it. So all that is left for us to do is, I'm just checking to make sure I've not missed anything. No, I have not. We hope you have the best Easter ever.
Yes.
We hope this was the start of the Easter celebrations.
If you're watching this on Good Friday, of course.
Or they might be watching it on Easter Sunday.
On Easter Sunday,
on the day we go and see Back to the Future in concert.
We're going on Easter Sunday to see Back to the Future.
The roads will be quiet.
That's true, which is good because we're driving up to Newcastle, aren't we?
Indeed we are.
Gateshead.
It's going to be marvellous. So have the best Easter ever. We will see you in 2 weeks when we'll be back with a brand new Pudding Club. And I cannot wait for that. It's going to be delicious.
It is.
But in the meantime, just to have the best time ever. Do lots of lovely knitting.
Yes.
I shall continue knitting my cascades. I'm now feeling very... I thought
good about
yes. I was pausing. I was waiting until we were here all together to discuss it, because I thought if I talk to Kay about it late at night, then things won't go well.
No. No, you always start talking to me late at night about stuff, and I'm like,
So ruled that out, and thought we'll talk about it together, and wonder of absolute wonders, because I was convinced the gauge was going to be off. We're all right. So I shall continue with
Looks
that.
good.
And yes, thank you so much for watching.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great Easter. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Enthusiasm's not quitting, pretending to the bakery bears. They'll take you to fabulous places of which they're favorites they'll share. You better buy a pattern, get yourself a bakery bear. You'll find yourself in a castle watching the bakery